So here we go. Let's talk about Mariah Carey's chart. Okay. When it comes to her astrocartography lines, the locations in which she came to her rise um, and the experiences that she had in the places that she's lived and the places that she's purchased property, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. But first and foremost, what I want to emphasize is that when it comes to astrocartography, it's not as simple as, oh yeah, I want to live on my Jupiter line. I'm going to have a lot of fun there and be in full abundance. Okay. There's a higher and lower octave to every, frequency. And also it's vital that you understand the natal chart, not just the natal chart, but you'll want to look at the progress chart as well when you are attempting to see where the best places would be that you would like to live. Okay. For instance, and I also want to address the fact that there is never going to be a perfect place to live. As you see here, we have a lot of opposition, and that is the energy that the person holds in and within them. Now, that does break up as time passes, right? In terms of the progress chart, how the sun moves 1 degree every single year, and then your entire chart begins to shift based on the experiences and the growth and the evolution that you have experienced, in your life. Okay. And so that is why we would also want to look at the progress chart when it comes to analyzing our energetic lines through astrocartography. Okay. She also has this square to her moon. All right. And we're dealing with water energy, right? So it's a water sign, it's a water house, it's a fire sign, and an air house. And so all of that is relevant when we're actually looking at the astrocartography lines on the globe, right? Because if she moved somewhere along her moon sign, right, or along her moon line, I should say, how is that gonna feel for her? For somebody else, it might feel very cozy. It feels like home. You might have ancestry there. And you might feel like a very harmonious home life, right? But for her, because inherently in her natal chart, she has this square to this Aries energy, okay? And what is Cancer and Aries? They co-rule the amygdala, okay? So when there's a square, Cancer is very nurturing, but Cancer is also very protective in order to nurture, right? And so that's the relationship that Aries and Cancer have in the square. All right. So there is self-protection, a lot of boundaries. If you think about it, Mariah Carey, she used to be very flirty, fun, kind of out there. I mean, still somewhat reserved, she wasn't like party animal like some of the younger generation. It's just wild. I mean, even my generation, they were super wild. Gen X, baby. But yeah, on whole different other levels, we're talking about public appearance, sophistication. And especially, with her having Venus at her ascendant. But anyhow, going back to astrocartography, a moon line might not feel as harmonious for her, especially it might feel very restrictive, in that square to Saturn. She might feel emotionally stuck if she were to live on her moon sign. Okay, or on her moon line, I'm sorry. At the same time, it would also help her to really face this natal energy for the sake of healing it. Okay, because all of this is spiritual growth, spiritual discipline, spiritual discernment, you know, and also understanding the value of that and the value of privacy. She's a very private person by nature, right? And that is Aries. You know, that is your Aries is the house. The first house is your nature. Okay. So, all right, let's talk about the places that Mariah Carey has actually lived. And then we're going to compare that to this chart, okay? And her life experience. Now, Mariah Carey lives right around this area. And for her, the closest line that you can see here is Pluto, her Pluto trine ascendant line. But the closest main line, because we're talking about, when we say main line, we're talking about the angle. So you've got your circular chart, we've got the AC, the DC, the IC, and the MC up here. Okay, so as you can see, this is moon IC. This is that this is that placement that I was just talking about with Mariah Carey. Okay, what would that moon feel like to her? That's gonna be a very big theme, especially with her still living so close to home, never having really moved away, right? She traveled a lot, and actually it's that independence from that 12th house energy, right? Spiritual independence. And it's like the 12th houses can be black sheep kind of like people, okay? And in the sign of Aries, especially, it was finding herself spiritually through adversity, okay? Because that's the spiritual warrior. Now, so we see that that was her experience when we hear about her family life, right? Her growing up, her siblings, and her moon is in the 3rd house. Those are the other aspects, like the sextile. You know, it's Pluto is sextiling or trining the MC, right? And here Mercury is sextiling the MC simultaneously. You see how close those two lines are. And so that is also influencing her life experience in New York here, in combination with this major line, moon IC line. Okay, the IC is always very karmic for family, right? And then regarding family, and if in the 3rd house also can be like childhood friends, right? People that had a real big influence on you growing up in your community. Now, this can be even MC, like bullied, or power, right? I would say if Mars was more involved with Pluto, it could be like public bullying, right? But in this case, she was popular. This is what do you call that? Mercury. And so Mercury is the social butterfly, you know, and it's in a sextile with the AC. The AC is how she comes across to the people around her, right? Talkative, right? Flirty. And that's what I said, how she used to be, right? And now she's much more stoic. So it'd be interesting. I didn't look at her progress chart, but it would be interesting to see, you know, what that looks like. Now, the popularity bringing her power and attention, most definitely, with that Pluto trining the MC, and and jealousy and obsessions, you know what I'm saying? And gossip, kind of amplifying all of that, right? So she's experiencing this in combination with that family trauma, like we saw here on her. Go back to the backgrounds, like we saw here on her chart. Okay, the family home trauma, the spiritual independence of self, having to set boundaries, maybe control, hidden control. We saw that in her relationship, her first marriage, right? And here's that power and control over her stage presence is the House of Leo, right? And so with Pluto being in retrograde and Jupiter being in retrograde and Uranus being in retrograde, all of them, it took her time. It took her adversity, it took a lot of pressure, and I'm sure depression, she trauma to release herself and regain herself. Aries wound of Chiron, but that's where her North Node, her self power and control over her own stage presence. Uranus brought that change in, right? It went, this is like the Wheel of Fortune card in reverse. Jupiter retrograde. This is like the Fool card in reverse, Uranus retrograde, right? And also Judgment right here, the Judgment card, Pluto retrograde in reverse. So it finally coming to a head, right? But it was after much struggle and psychological Pluto warfare, all right? And she did experience that living so close to, but it came out to her favor despite why. Let's go back here. First of all, I can tell you why, because she persevered. It brought enough internal tension for her to have to set herself free, that enough was enough. And then that, activated her kite energy here so that she could fly and be free, right? So, but let's go back and why she was able to do that as well. Is she with the trine, because of the positive energetic placement in which she was located with the Pluto. What if Pluto, she was in a place where Pluto was in a square? Okay, would it have gone in her favor as much? Would she had suffered and never gotten that justice that, from that Libra energy there, going back to her chart. So yeah, there you have it. And then let's see, where is her Mercury actually? Backgrounds, Mariah Carey's chart. So as I was saying, Mercury, there you go. That is also conjunct her North Node. Okay, so it's a spiritual destiny point. All right, but in past lives, this is that freedom from codependence that she experienced, that residue came with her into this life. And we know that because what is Scorpio on her DC, right? It just validates what we see here. Yeah. And with Mercury being in Pisces is high pitch. Mercury is your voice, right? Or your words, in combination with Venus, which would be your vocal cords, right? But Pisces in and of itself is etheric and it's high pitched. It's hydrogen, oxygen. So that's where that comes from with Mariah Carey. Right next to her North Node, what is she known for? That's right. Yeah, so there's one example of where she currently lives, okay, and how this chart, very specific to her, is extremely important, and why your chart, very specific to you, is extremely important when you are analyzing, which energetic lines you may want to move to or travel to. All right, let's go back again, and I have some more charts I wanted to share. Okay, so, all right. With that being said, right, another thing that I noticed, North Node in Pisces, right? And I actually wanted to see, where is her Neptune? Let me go back. Let's go back. And this is what we do when it comes to astrology. You go back and forth between the charts. You diagnose, you analyze, right? And you cross-reference, okay? So going back to her chart, where's Neptune? It's in Scorpio, and it's in her 7th house. Okay, partnership. All right, Mariah. What I was going to say now, when I was looking at this, if I were to choose a line for her to live on, right? If she was to move, I would say, what would be of most ease? Some people don't have any, chart. Their chart doesn't have any lines of complete ease, right? Here, the one planet that she has that is at ease in both directions is Neptune retrograde, okay? And that's in her 7th house. So, and of course, it's at ease with a planet that's at war, or with a house that's at war, or with I don't want to say at war, because it's also the North Node, so that's like super important, right? We saw how publicly she had to fight for her independence. Okay, this is what I mean. So even though this energy has oppositions, we still have this is the one and only planet. I always look to see, okay, which is the first, and what's the first planet that sticks out to me that doesn't have any more difficult tensions. Now, when I say that, it's not just the red lines, because it also matters which planet's involved in that open flow. Somebody who has Pluto in a trine with Jupiter might experience abundant death in their life, right? Especially depending on, if Scorpio is involved, you know what I mean? So it's not always, it's a deception to think, oh, this, blue lines are good. Often it can be, they can be more harmonious, for sure, right? So, or they're definitely our teachers, right? So in this case, like I was saying, Neptune retrograde is the only one that doesn't have like a red aspect to it. Everything else kind of, has something going on there. So I thought, okay, I bet you, because Neptune is retirement, it's the last sign of the zodiac, it's grandparents, right? It's ancient. And so I thought, I bet she's going to retire on her Neptune line. and she will finally, in her 7th house, okay, first and foremost, she's definitely destined to find herself, right? To be by herself. She might have men that come and go or whatever, kind of affairs, entertainment, or, just ways of fulfillment, right? But you know, as far as companionship, but at the end of the day, she's single a lot, right? And I say that because she is known as an individual, not as a couple, right? And so even when she does, like, we were all surprised that she got married and had, you know, kids with him, especially somebody younger. But I don't know. Do you think of Mariah Carey as single because she's like an icon? I do. And so this is really that like autonomy. That's what I mean. It's the autonomy, you know, whether she's partnered or not partnered, she was like destined to be like autonomous, right? Like this is where her where she had to evolve on her soul's journey, right? And but I feel like once she retires, once she settles down, as she continues to get older, she might move to her Neptune line, and yeah, Mars is still here. But I think that she might have a secret partner that she kind of ends up being with for the rest of her life, right? It might not be public. We might know about them a little bit. They might not be super famous or whatever. And I think that would happen in Boston, and I'll tell you why. Back to the chart. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Running straight through Boston is Neptune sextile her MC. So we will know about it. But I also looked up, I was like, okay, I wonder if she's ever talked about, you know, if she has ties to Boston, if she's ever, you know, talked about retiring there. And I found out that she did have ties to Boston, and with some well-known rich person that owns chains of restaurants. I don't know what group that is. Anyway, and I bet, I'm like, it could be someone she knows in that circle, right? And then I also learned that there was a rumor that she was going to retire in Boston, and then she canceled those rumors and said no, she's not retiring, she's still touring, you know. And so I was like, oh, interesting, because that was my first thought. I was like, oh, I bet she'll retire like in Boston. That would be a good place for her, right? Mind you that even here in Boston, we have, instead of it being a major, the major line, right, or right here, the moon IC line, the thicker line, this is a minor line here where it's the moon sextiling the ascendant, and it crosses, there's a paran. When energetic lines cross over like this, they call that a paran. And so it's important when you look at your chart also that you're not just looking at the energetic lines and your natal chart, but also you want to kind of check out the parans. There is a school of thought that says it's critical, vital, extremely important. And then there's another school of thought that says, hey, it's not as important as they make it out to be. So this is a personal determination. But yeah, with that, being that in her natal chart, her moon is in a square to her Aries energy, right? This sextile, moon sextiling the ascendant can create opportunities for her to heal some of that moon energy. And that is what Neptune brings, okay? Neptune is all about healing. So, yeah, I thought it was really interesting looking at Mariah Carey's chart and her astrocartography lines and kind of comparing that to the little I know about her life. I am not super well versed in celebrity lives, but she's definitely an icon. So here we have more charts that I wanted to look at. Although I could probably stop the chat right there, and that was enough for one day. But here we have, okay, no. Oh, okay. This is relevant too to this location because this chart shows the disharmonious minor aspects. Okay. And so we see where she dealt with that control, Saturn, and it was hidden control, right? Because, well, was her Saturn? Her Saturn was in 12th house, right? Let me go back. Anyway, I don't want to go back yet. I believe her Saturn was in her 12th house, and so this was hidden control, hidden from the major public eye. Okay, everyone who knew her, or everyone who knew of her, right? All of her fans. It was hidden from all of her fans, right? Or from the news or whatever initially, right? She was dealing with this control of power when it came to contracts and like business, right? And then we have these little banners keep coming up and blocking my view. I apologize. Then we have Venus that is in a what? In a square also to the MC. Okay. So she got kind of financially jacked. Like, even though she's really rich, she got financially jacked. And actually, I also see that in, even with the positive lines that we saw, right? It was Pluto trine her, was it her ascendant or her MC? I think it was her ascendant, right? With that line running through there, and with the Mercury line running through there, she was able to use her assets to leverage them for her benefit when it came to property, right? And she was able to, she actually acquired a lot of debt. And so living near a Pluto trine line, she did acquire a lot of debt, but it came from, it was like, it's like a game we play, right? With your credit, with your assets, with your worth, with people who see your inherent value, you know what I mean? And with assets that appreciate over time. And so it's like a give and take. It's an art. It's definitely an art form, right? And what does Pluto represent? It represents shared assets, whether it was with her ex-husband or the banks, Chase, right? That's who she refinanced her property with, and she's been able to get borrowed millions, right? But somehow she plays it off. She's definitely, it is a system. It is a loophole. It is an algorithm that you catch. And she has caught it on this line, but not without stresses and strains and depression. It's that square, Saturn square MC. And not without getting taken advantage of financially too, but she has empowered herself through all of it. Okay, let's look at a next chart. Because I had looked up, and maybe I don't need to do all that. I think that we've shown great examples here. Love how this unraveled. So here we have it, ladies and gentlemen. This was Mariah's Carey chart, and a little bit about the astrocartography and how her chart impacted her along those lines, and how being along those lines impacted her energy. Okay. Super cool stuff. I have been traveling for the past 5 years. It wasn't like my first time traveling, right? But I actually left my home state, where I had grown up and lived since I was 5. And I took off in an RV, and I had the opportunity of experiencing all of these different energetic lines and the happenings that occurred for me. I would love to share more information when you're ready, and if you're interested in moving or checking out a place, or if you are looking for job offers in a couple of different places, I can definitely help you along those lines.